What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Ilia Topuria sends a warning to Charles Oliveira and goes off on Islam Makhachev. The highly anticipated fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira is only days away, but El Matador isn't letting up on the verbal jabs that he's been firing at Do Bronx and even Islam Makhachev. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. Ever since Topuria decided to vacate the UFC's featherweight title and move up to lightweight, he's repeatedly warned that his powers at 155 will be even greater. Not only that, Topuria has repeatedly insisted he's going to take out Oliveira, even though Do Bronx has finished innumerable top-tier lightweights. Case in point, during the countdown show for UFC 317, Topuria said this: "I don't play anyone's game, I make them play my game. That's why I'm undefeated and he's not. He has 10 losses and I have 0. I respect him, but I'm gonna try to take his head off, and you all know I'm going to do it." Now, it should be noted that Oliveira also has not been shy about sharing why he thinks that he'll reclaim the lightweight title on June 28th. Oliveira has questioned whether Topuria will be the force he was at featherweight, and he's even argued that his punching power is greater than El Matador's. So when Topuria was asked about Oliveira's comments while talking with Kevin Iola, the Spain-based fighter said this: "That's very wishful thinking, that he thinks he has a more powerful punch than me. I challenge him. We can do a separate boxing match, grappling match, wrestling match, everywhere. I beat him however I want. This is how confident I feel." Now, as UFC 317 approaches, the consensus seems to be that Topuria's clearest path to victory is on the feet, and that he should try to avoid any ground exchanges with Oliveira. That's because Do Bronx is one of the most dangerous submission artists the UFC has ever known. So if those comments from Topuria raised your eyebrows, check out what he had to say in this pre-fight media scrum.
"I can knock him out, I can submit him, whatever. The only thing I know for sure is that I'm gonna knock him out in the first round or submit him in the first round, because he walks forward. I'm not gonna need to close the distance with him. Since the first moment, we are gonna find each other in the center of the octagon. So yeah, it's gonna be a first round finish."
Do you see Topuria submitting Oliveira? And do you think he truly believes this? Well, one man who tapped out Oliveira was the now former champ Islam Makhachev, who has moved up to welterweight to pursue the 170-pound title. Topuria has made it clear that he wants to fight Makhachev at some point. Case in point, at his open workout, Topuria said he'll move up to 170 just to chase Makhachev. But while talking with Yahoo Sports' Iola, Topuria argued that a bout with his rival Paddy Pimblett would be even bigger, while, yes, taking some additional pokes at Makhachev.
"I think that it's gonna be even bigger, me against Paddy, than me against Islam, because the one that no one gives a about him, that's Islam. No one gives a even in Dagestan, when he's fighting, the people goes to sleep and they watch his fight in the morning. Even at home, who gives a about Islam? He doesn't even know how to pronounce 2 words."
Do you agree that Topuria versus Pimblett would be bigger? First things first, however, and Topuria needs to get past Do Bronx. And according to a recent social media post from Iradi Prat, Topuria's team is reporting the following about his camp. "His team tells me that Ilia Topuria has broken his visual reaction speed record multiple times during this camp. The previous record was set during his featherweight camp for UFC 308, in case anyone thought he'd be slower at lightweight." It's going to be fascinating to see how Topuria performs at 155, and thankfully, we don't have to wait too much longer, as evidenced by the fact that Oliveira recently had his hair dyed blonde. Who are you picking to win the UFC 317 main event? Francis Ngannou responds to Dana White. Yesterday, during the UFC Baku press conference, Dana White was asked about re-signing Francis Ngannou. Here's what he had to say.
"Francis says he changed his mind and he would consider coming back to the UFC. Would you be open to having Francis back?"
He would consider coming back to UFC if what? One thing I've learned over the years about Francis doesn't always mean what he says publicly. What he says behind the scenes are different than what he says publicly. I'm not a big fan. I would be shocked if Francis ever came back here on lots of different levels. I'm not a fan, and he doesn't always mean what he says publicly.
Well, Francis heard Dana White's comments and said the following on X. "Did I say I'm ever coming back?" with a confused emoji. He also responded to a fan who told him to come back and get his belt by writing, "I don't remember losing it, mate. It's still in my closet." What's next for Khalil Rountree Jr. after UFC Baku win? Khalil Rountree Jr. wasn't able to return to the win column with a highlight reel finish at UFC Baku, but the light heavyweight contender ensured that he remains in the title shot mix by badly outstriking Jamal Hill. Rountree Jr. was fighting for the first time since last October, when he was stopped by now former champ Alex Pereira in round 4. From the opening bell at UFC Baku, Rountree battered the legs of Hill with wince-inducing kicks, and later on in the fight, he tagged him several times with thumping punches. While some may argue that Rountree Jr. should have hunted harder for a finish and that he played it too safe, there was no doubt after 25 minutes that he had won the fight. So what's next for the Muay Thai specialist? Heading into Saturday's action, Rountree was ranked number 7 and Hill was number 4. So you'd think that provided everyone's schedule accommodates, Rountree is going to step in there with another top-ranked fighter. Could we see him fight another former champion like Jiri Prochazka, who is also coming off a win over Hill? If the UFC is able to book a rematch between Pereira and the new champion Magomed Ankalaev, that certainly seems like a possibility. Or might the UFC look at Carlos Ulberg, who is ranked number 3? Who do you want to see Rountree fight next? Dana White provides update on UFC broadcast deal. Sometime in late summer or early fall, the MMA world will learn just how much cash the UFC makes from its new broadcasting deal. Well, as the clock ticks on the promotion's current agreement with ESPN, it looks like the promotion will have more than one broadcasting partner. As you likely know if you watch this channel, the UFC's 7-year broadcasting deal that it signed with ESPN is coming to a close. Although there's been a lot of debate recently whether the UFC is in a recession, the consensus seems to be that the promotion is going to cash in big time on its new broadcasting rights deal. After all, the ESPN agreement was for $1.5 billion, and since then, broadcasting rights deals have exploded in terms of how much dough networks and platforms are willing to pay out. Not only that, it's not uncommon for sports leagues to have multiple broadcasting partners. So when Dana White recently spoke with Sports Business Journal, he acknowledged that the UFC could be signing multiple broadcasting rights deals. Everything is going well. We're happy with all the discussions we're having. I don't know yet, but yes, it's likely we end up with multiple partners. While there is a chance that White could just be saying this as a negotiating ploy, he has said this before. Case in point, in April, the UFC CEO said this: "When the window opens, we'll obviously start talking to lots of different people, and we'll see what the options are out there. We've said this every time. There could be a time when we end up on several different networks like all other sports do. I like ESPN. I've said it many times. We had a bit of a rocky start, which is normal in any relationship, but we're in a great place with ESPN. Whether we re-sign with them or do not, I have nothing but great things to say about my time at ESPN." Do you think the UFC will end up signing with various platforms and networks? And do you think ESPN is going to be one of them? Belal Muhammad sends a warning to Kamaru Usman. It remains to be seen who Belal Muhammad fights next, but the former welterweight champion seems laser-focused on throwing hands with Kamaru Usman. If you follow Muhammad and Usman, you know that the welterweights have been feuding through social media and interviews. A key reason being that the two apparently had to be separated after they nearly came to blows when Muhammad was a guest on the Pound for Pound podcast. At the time of that incident, Muhammad was the reigning champion and Usman was on a 3-fight losing streak. But all of that has changed now that Muhammad lost the title to Jack Della Maddalena and Usman recently defeated Joaquin Buckley. During a recent media event, Muhammad was asked about whether he's considering a weight division change, but the former champion quickly shot that down with this:
"My only intention now is to punch Kamaru Usman in the face, and that's who I want next, and that's all I'm looking for. Kamaru Usman next, that's it."
Following Usman's win over Buckley, he's campaigning to fight the winner of the expected JDM Islam Makhachev fight. But Muhammad believes a showdown with Usman makes perfect sense. Case in point, via his YouTube channel, Belal recently said this: "I wanted him to get on mic and call me out. Think that's the next one that makes sense. That's the only fight that makes sense. If you're talking about the division, we have a history. We've been going back and forth. It's a clear number 1 contender fight. He's calling for the belt at 185, 170, but I'm number 1. I'm still the guy at the top. So let's do it." Do you want to see Muhammad and Usman fight? And do you think it makes sense, given that Belal is currently ranked number 1? UFC updates. Let's take a look at some UFC and fight updates. The social media channel CROD97 recently reported that Andre Fili and Christian Rodriguez are going to throw hands at the UFC August 9th card in Las Vegas. Fili is looking to get back on track after he was submitted by Melquizael Costa in February. That loss followed Fili's split decision win over fellow longtime UFC fighter Cub Swanson last June. Fili has gone 2-3 in his last 5. Meanwhile, Rodriguez is also coming off a loss to Melquizael Costa, as he lost via unanimous decision to the featherweight in March. Rodriguez is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Octagon Report recently raised eyebrows by reporting Cedric Dumas will apparently fight Jackson McVeigh at UFC 317 next weekend. The reason the news is turning heads is because recently it was reported that Dumas was arrested in April following an alleged domestic violence and home invasion incident. Dumas is coming off a unanimous decision loss to Michael Oleksiejczuk in April and is 2-3 in his last 5. McVeigh, on the other hand, is a UFC newcomer. The middleweight has gone 6-0 to date in pro action. And a recent social media post from Ali Abdelaziz has the MMA world buzzing about the possibility that Zabit Magomedsharipov could be returning to the octagon. Now, yes, Abdelaziz only posted Zabit, but given that the MMA world was shocked when it was announced in 2022 that Magomedsharipov was retiring, you gotta wonder why he would post that, unless perhaps Zabit is eyeing a comeback. Magomedsharipov was widely considered to be one of the best featherweights on the planet when it was announced that he was hanging up the gloves. He did so carrying an impressive record of 18-1. And if you follow freestyle wrestling, the name Abdul Rashid Sadulayev should mean something, given that he's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist and 6-time world champ. Well, a new video clip has surfaced which shows Sadulayev talking on the phone with Dana White and via Khabib Nurmagomedov as a translator, telling the UFC CEO he wants to fight for the promotion. If Sadulayev does transition into MMA, he will instantly become a prospect worth monitoring. Ronda Rousey blames UFC for health issues. Ever since losing to Amanda Nunes back in 2016, Ronda Rousey has been dismissive of a return to action. While there were some rumors that the former champ could potentially surprise fans with a fight on the historic UFC 300 card, they were quickly shut down. Around that time, Rousey opened up on how even if she wanted to get back in the octagon, she isn't neurologically fit to compete. Now, in an interview with Untapped, Rousey spoke about how a long-term neurological study that Dana White got her into helped shed light on a history of concussions and neurological issues dating back to her judo days. As it turns out, part of the reason she couldn't take a punch against Amanda Nunes was because of a genetic predisposition to migraines. He was saying that people that get migraines are actually more susceptible to concussions, and the more concussions that you get, the easier it is for these impacts to set off a migraine. I'd get hit and I'd basically lose big chunks of my vision and my depth perception and my ability to track movements quickly and make snap decisions, which is basically all the things that I need, and I thought I have a concussion. I'm out of my feet, but I wouldn't be stumbling around. I didn't lose my balance. This was like I had to retire because this kept happening to me more and more often, to the point where I would get a jab and I would basically go blind. The doctor said what he thinks is happening is that these impacts now, because of all the concussions, are setting off these migraine events, which is like my neurons get overly excited and then they shut down. So it could be a game changer because there could actually be some solutions to it. Before I was like, oh, it's just inevitably declined, and I inevitably declined. Now that I'm kind of getting some help and diagnosis and stuff like that, I'm much more hopeful than I've ever been. And instead of just being like, okay, this is just part of it, I've just got to walk away before it gets worse. Possibly there's something I can do to make it better. During a separate interview with Chris Van Vliet, Rousey also weighed in on her rise to superstardom, taking a shot at Chris Cyborg while reflecting on how she broke barriers for women in MMA after Dana White famously said that women would never fight in the UFC. When Gina Carano was gone, Chris Cyborg's pumped to the gills with no one wants to watch that cheating. Everything just tanked. The division was. It was just a matter of time before they closed the whole thing, and there would be nowhere that would showcase women's MMA. So I had that much time to make sure that Dana White couldn't go a single day without seeing my name somewhere. The rest is history. While it seems unlikely that the former champion will ever return to action, given that she's been retired for nearly a decade and has fully embraced motherhood, it's great to hear that Rousey's health is in a better place. Dustin Poirier grappling ahead of Max Holloway fight. Heading into Dustin Poirier's UFC 318 bout against Max Holloway, the MMA world is expecting these two to battle things out on the feet. In recent training footage shared by American Top Team, however, Poirier can be seen working on his grappling and submission skills, from get-ups against the fence to Peruvian neckties. While Poirier's picked up several submission victories inside the octagon, the one thing he doesn't have is a guillotine win. As the leader of the Gilly Goose Gang, a guillotine win would certainly be fitting for the former interim champion's farewell fight. Tom Aspinall reacts to Jon Jones' retirement. Wow, what a crazy weekend. We reported yesterday that Dana White revealed during the post-fight press conference for UFC Baku that Jon Jones is officially retired. Well, we had a lot of things happen since then. Jon Jones talked about his retirement on a social media post. Today, I'm officially announcing my retirement from the UFC. This decision comes after a lot of reflection, and I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude for the journey I've experienced over the years. From the first time I stepped into the octagon, my goal was to push the boundaries of what was possible in this sport, becoming the youngest UFC champion in history, defending my title against some of the best fighters in the world, and sharing unforgettable moments with fans across the globe. These are memories I'll cherish forever. I've faced incredible highs and some tough lows, but every challenge has taught me something valuable and made me stronger, both as a fighter and as a person. I want to thank the UFC, Dana, Hunter, Lorenzo, God, my family, coaches, teammates, and all the fans who have stood by me through every chapter. Your unwavering support and belief in me have been my foundation. To my fellow fighters, thank you for bringing out the best in me and for the respect we've shared inside and outside the cage. As I close this chapter of my life, I look forward to new opportunities and challenges ahead. MMA will always be a part of who I am, and I'm excited to see how I can continue to contribute to the sport and inspire others in new ways. Thank you all for being part of this incredible journey with me. The best is yet to come. After the post, many people from the MMA community called out Jon Jones for using AI to write the statement. After the Jon Jones announcement, Tom Aspinall reacted to the situation on Instagram by writing, "It's time to get this heavyweight division going. An active, undisputed champion." Daniel Cormier also reacted to the news and called Jon Jones a quitter during his YouTube video.
You got to stay up late with the boy because Jon Jones quit. I said it a couple weeks ago that if he didn't fight this guy, Jon Jones quit. And tonight, Dana White announced that he did. Unbelievable. I don't know if this is tactics by the UFC. I don't know that this is frustrations with Jon Jones. I don't know what this is. Does it feel like the end completely? I hope it does. Because if he cares about his legacy, he doesn't want to be sitting there beating up on guys that may get past Tom Aspinall. They gave him the money. They agreed to everything. And he still just would not do it. I'm going to bed. I'm tired. Like this, my head's spinning. It was crazy when Dana said that.
But with all of this happening, there was also some huge news that dropped involving Jon Jones and an alleged hit and run. So let's go on to our next story. Jon Jones charged with hit and run again. Jon Jones is allegedly in trouble with the law again after there was a misdemeanor charge placed on him for leaving the scene of an accident in February. The charge was filed Tuesday in Metropolitan Court, and Jones has been called to appear for a bond arraignment on July 24th. The report stated that allegedly, an Albuquerque police officer was investigating a traffic crash near San Mateo and Lomas when they came across a woman in the front passenger seat of one of the cars exhibiting signs of significant intoxication and lacking clothing from the waist down. The woman allegedly said that Jon Jones was the driver, but fled the scene on foot. She then allegedly called Jones, and a police service aide spoke to the man on the other end of the call believed to be Jones. He appeared to be heavily intoxicated and made statements implying his capacity to employ lethal force through third parties to the PSA, according to the court record. The complaint also stated that the man on the phone never answered direct questions about whether he was Jon Jones. When Jon was interviewed in person a few days after the crash, he said the woman found in the car had left his house earlier in the day intoxicated and called him after getting in the crash. At which time, he said the person she handed the phone to, quote, immediately opened the conversations with unprofessional language, which led him to doubt the legitimacy of the individual's claim. The woman later told police she drank alcohol and consumed mushrooms at Jon's house and recalled needing to change her clothes at his house, and her next recollection was being at the scene of a traffic accident. She said the last person she remembered driving her car was Jon. Police also said that Jon called the woman's phone 13 times from the time of the crash until 11:34 a.m. the following morning, and that text messages from his phone were included, but they could not be, quote, captured in call detail records. Jon Jones reacted to this news on Twitter by writing, "Keep in mind, even the media can get it wrong sometimes if they don't have all the facts. Don't believe everything you read online."
Did you know about the stuff that came out of Albuquerque last night?
I saw it today. When I saw it today, I said, oh, everybody's going to think this is why he retired. Maybe that is why he retired. Who the hell knows, man? But, yeah, I don't know. These are all questions you got to ask him. We had the fight done. You saw me talking about it very confidently that this fight was going to happen. And then he changed his mind.
What do you think of this situation? Let us know in the comments below. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers on MMA Zone by subscribing and turning on notifications for daily MMA content. Seriously, we rarely miss a day.